The chair recognizes the honourable member for Killarney.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute was designed to advance agriculture, marine science, and education here in the Bahamas. And this training institution can play a leading role in fostering greater food security, economic diversification, and the development of Bahamian entrepreneurs in food production. Madam Speaker, I wish to add some context to the need for the continued development of Bamzi. During my administration, we significantly increased resources for education and small business development to boost economic development and opportunities for entrepreneurs. We ensured that qualifying students could attend the University of Bahamas as well as Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institution free of charge. We also ensured that every student coming from the Family Island to attend any of these institutions was given $500 per month to assist them with accommodation here in New Providence. And I asked the government, will the government commit to doing the same thing for Bamzi? Will the government also commit to utilizing the Small Business Development Center to create economic opportunities for graduates of Bamzi? Madam Speaker, the Bahamian economy has grown significantly since independence. However, it is still not yet as diversified as we would like it to be. The lion's share is based on tourism and financial services, which will remain our key pillars of our economy. And there have been many efforts by successive governments to invest in agriculture and fisheries. And some initiatives have had some success, but we have not done enough as a people to create a more vibrant and dynamic food production sector. Bamzi is something we must get right. The Bahamas must be able to provide more of its own food. The vast majority of our foods are imported. And the pandemic has shown that unexpected shocks could come to the global economy at any time, threatening the supply of items from abroad. In the event of a worse pandemic than the one we remain in, or a global military conflict that breaks down existing supply chains, the Bahamas might have tremendous difficulties securing food. And food security is critical to the well-being of functional nation states. Madam Speaker, we must continue to make the necessary investments to get a position where we could more sustainably feed ourselves, especially if we experience such and more external shocks. This should be a set goal for both political parties. This is why I support the initiative to further empower and develop Bamzi to be a key component of our agriculture sector. It must be a leader in research and development in our sustained push to be more self-sufficient in various areas of food production. Madam Speaker, as Member of Parliament for Killarney, I support efforts to strengthen Bamzi and to increase the production of healthy, home-grown foods. Such healthy foods are especially needed to help combat the epidemic of non-communicable diseases, including obesity, diabetes, and hypertension, which affects scores of Bahamians. While the ideas behind Bamzi is critical, it must be well run and free of the problems surrounding the institute, which occurred on the watch of the previous PLP government, including the then Deputy Prime Minister. I want to remind the House, Madam Speaker, of the many difficulties at Bamzi during that period. I wish to lay on the table at the end of the House a March 12, 2015 Tribune story under the headline, and I quote, "DPM misled Parliament over Bamzi" by Krishna Virgil. The report noted, and I quote, "Works Minister Philip Davis yesterday backtracked from his initial comments that the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute's fire damage dorms insurance policy had lapsed." It went on, instead, he confirmed that 2.6 million structure never had all risk insurance coverage, something that was not revealed until 2 months after it was severely damaged by flames on January 15th. He said this oversight was due to an administrative error. Mr. Davis said the contractor stands fully liable for the construction outlay to date, totaling $2,550,864.15. However, estimates already submitted to the government peg construction costs at around $5.5 million, Mr. Davis said. Went on, this comes 2 weeks after the Deputy Prime Minister told parliamentarians that the buildings contractor, Audley Hanna of Paradigm Construction, was negligent in paying the dorm's annual insurance premium. And during the February 25th House of Assembly session, Mr. Davis said, when Mr. Hanna signed the building contract, he had everything that was required to take on the project with the Ministry of Works, which included a contractor's all-risk insurance. It went on, however, Mr. Davis's tone changed in the House of Assembly yesterday as he admitted that Mr. Hanna submitted every required document to the government except an insurance policy certificate. He said he did not receive the contractor's file until March 2nd, which was when he said he learned the facts of the matter. The Tribune story continued, Madam Speaker. Despite the absence of the insurance certificate, Mr. Davis said money was still issued to the contractor. Ms. Davis said, while this administration has historically been known to give those in need a hand up, there could be no plausible explanation for what happened in this case. Further went on, while he could not speculate if there was an arrangement for the Ministry of Works to advance the premium to the insurance company from the mobilization payment, the policy should have been in place. Madam Speaker, the member of Cat Island demonstrated gross mismanagement, poor oversight, and confusion as the Minister of Works in relation to Bamzi. Let us hope that the handling of matters at Bamzi on his watch as Prime Minister will not be rife with many of the same or new administrative errors. Madam Speaker, there is widespread consensus on diversifying our economy and significantly expanding the agriculture and fisheries sector. Many thought we also had consensus on tax policy towards the poor. Developing Bamzi is important. Protecting the poor from high food prices is also critical as a matter of fairness and social and economic justice. It was shocking.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Pinewood.
But the issue raised with regard to the former contractor of the Bamzi dorm, who I must say, the late Audley Hanna. Madam Speaker, a lot has been made, a lot of it in the public domain. But I think there's a counterbalance, there's a point to be made here. When that building was destroyed, Madam Speaker, the contract value was, I think, around $4.2 million. At the point, and I'm not a contractor, those in here who may know better would know that windows, doors, I think the generator was also inside along with long lead items. From any contractor I'm advised it's around 80%. Yet I could say that the drawdown was around 50%. Mr. Hanna may have had his fault. The issue of the non-insurance is a value one, but one to be raised. However, I think there should be a fair picture. This is the same contractor who delivered on one of the dorms for the detention center within budget, on time, who delivered the industrial tribunal. As a matter of fact, I think he was paid after he was given his check when they were getting the occupancy certificate. And yes, we can all make hay about the fact that there was no insurance on that. Let us be fair in our imputation of a man who's no longer here to defend himself, and look at the full picture. There's a report that was done by the Ministry of Works that gave a complete breakdown of the state of the building that was damaged by the fire, the amount of money that would take to rebuild, how much was left in the account. And I think it's fair to say that drawing down 50% of the funds on a building that is anywhere from 80% complete is not somebody who is just taking government funds and not delivering fair value for money.
Thank you, honourable member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would continue in the interest of time. At the end, I would gladly rebuttal, and as I've said, I've adopted and will sign the documents and table in Parliament. Protecting the poor from high food cost prices is also critical as a matter of fairness and social and economic justice. It was shocking to many Bahamians that on coming to office, one of the first things this new administration did was to raise taxes on bread basket items and at the same time reduce taxes on caviar and champagne. Successive Bahamian governments ensured that breakfast items were tax-free because such items are staples used by poor Bahamians. Bread basket items are also staples used by middle-class Bahamians. Bread basket items over the years included foodstuffs like bread, grits, cheese, corned beef, butter, cooking oil, evaporated milk, margarine, rice, mayonnaise, flour, tomato paste, baby cereal, soup, broths, canned fish, baby food, and formula, condensed milk, and others. The decision by the Minister of Finance and his administration to impose a 10% VAT on bread basket items is a betrayal to the poor. It is an attack on the poor. In my view, it is uncaring, and it is callous. The previous VAT exemption on bread basket items existed to give tax relief to those of less means. A story in Nassau Guardian by Chester Robards, which I will adopt, reported the view of the Chief Financial Officer for SuperValue. I wish to read from this newspaper report. I quote, SuperValue's Chief Financial Officer yesterday urged Bahamians to budget their money and brace for price increases on grocery items. The CFO said, the price increases brought on by supply chain issues caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with the 10% increase in value-added tax VAT on bread basket items, present a double whammy for some shoppers. A double whammy, Madam Speaker. Can you imagine a double whammy? Madam Speaker, I hail from Baintown. Many of the people in the area I grew up in cannot afford food after what the new government has done. You see stories in the news and on social media regularly where Bahamians complain about the skyrocketing prices of food. The poor use bread basket items regularly. Many only had enough money to pay for these items at the prices they used to be at before the New Day tax was placed on bread basket items. The additional 10% means many poor Bahamians have to leave items at the cash register. They can no longer get all the food they need to feed their families. The New Day tax on bread basket items now adds to global inflation pressures, making many food items so expensive that people struggle to buy enough to eat. Bahamians, Madam Speaker, are angry at this administration for taxing the basic foods most rely on to survive. The decision by this government to add taxes to bread basket foods is at the heart of the high prices Bahamians now have to pay at food stores.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
Speaker, I believe the member for Killarney is a former Minister of Finance, and he no doubt would have learned during that stint that inflation in the Bahamas is really driven by and large by what happens abroad. And he may have been briefed or not that the current levels of inflation in the world is due in large measure due to supply chain issues and other external factors that impact our country and the world. It is therefore disingenuous, Madam Speaker, for the member to suggest that the cost of food and the increasing costs in the grocery store is as a result of any action taken by this government in the last 4 months. It is simply wrong for him to do so. It is clearly wrong from a former prime minister who pledged on the floor of this House that he would take care of the poor, not the 5 years he had, but during his next term. And clearly we saw how that happened. So we ask him, Madam Speaker, to focus on the issues at hand and not try to paint a picture to the Bahamian people that this government in 4 months would have inflicted increases in the cost of the grocery store on the Bahamian people. It's simply wrong and it's misleading.
Yes, the chair recognizes the honourable member for Engliston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the member for Killarney has not remembered that under his watch, the cost of living reached the highest level ever in the history of this nation. Nothing to do with these recent issues related to food supply, which everyone knows about. You see what's happening in the Canadian border, you see what's happening in the harbors, etc. Not only that, the member should recall that when he led the charge for increasing VAT across the board by 60% on every product in this nation, that he was warned that it would cause for the reduction in consumerism and also a decreased revenues, and that he did not take heed. And so really the cocktail and the foundational cocktail began under the watch of Killarney through his poor decisions and and as the member has pointed out, anything he points to in recent events, he's now seeking to attach to VAT, or attaching VAT to other certain items is erroneous, because the foundation for where we are today was laid under his watch and his poor decisions, including increasing the tax burden on the people of Baintown, where he came from. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, in the interest of time, I will address both members' comments at the end. But it's the government's responsibility when costs increase to mitigate as much as possible the cost. And my colleague, the member for Central Grand Bahama, had brought forth some solutions. The new administration was warned not to do this, Madam Speaker. If the government wanted to lower VAT across the board, that was their decision. But if they could have also still ensured there would be no VAT on bread basket items. Madam Speaker, I wish to enter in the record part of a story that recently ran in Nassau Guardian by Travis Cartwright Rule, titled, "Low Incomes Not Keeping Up with Skyrocketing Food Costs." The story noted, and I just want to remind this House, Madam Speaker, that in November of last year, during debate, I would have mentioned that cost of living would have increased by about 15% before December and an additional 20% after. The records would reflect. The story noted the $200 that a Miss Johnson spends in the food store at the end of every month isn't enough for her and her two children. Johnson, 39, who lives on Augusta Street, said yesterday that she's doing her best to survive as food prices skyrocket. It's been rough, but we've managed to make it, she said, as her school-aged nephew and niece played inside the home. I work for the government. I get paid every month, every other month. The cost of living is very high. Going to the food store and buying your stuff, you have to try to budget what you have. She went on, I normally spend $200 and I go at the end of every month. Does the grocery last? The Guardian asked. No, she replied, it doesn't last for me. The children eat a lot, and with the pandemic, they're eating a lot more. Then they go to school only 2 days out of the week, so you have to find money for them for breakfast. It went on. A recent study by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization showed that food prices in January 2022 for sugar, meat, dairy, vegetable oil, and cereal were all up compared to December 2021. Johnson said the addition of value-added tax on grocery items is a major factor in a budget. Before you go to the food store, you have to make sure you have the VAT added so that you know how much your bill will be. The Guardian also interviewed a retiree. The story noted, retired and living in a government complex for senior citizens. Hall said he is living off of his small pension. You have to know enough financial mathematics to do with your income what Christ did with the 5 loaves and 3 fishes, because it is extremely hard, he said. He also said, I have to make do with those things because by the time BPL comes in, Water Corporation comes in, cable comes in, and telephone, by the time you're finished doing that, you have enough to get the Guardian and go read it. There's nothing left. Hall said the pandemic and the addition of VAT on breadbasket items, a controversial move taken by the new Davis administration, hit him hard. He also said he spends about $150 a week in the food store, and while he tries to buy what healthy food items he can, Hall said he only purchases the things he knows he will need. He also said he also took advantage of the government's food distribution program when it was active. The National Food Distribution Task Force was launched in 2020 to assist families struggling to survive during the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. He went on, it provides assistance for more than 70 weeks at a price tag of at least $54 million. At one point, at least 57,000 households were depending on the task force. Hall said that after spending money on bills and giving what you can to church, you're broke. You're living in a state of being broke. The Guardian also interviewed a Miss DeRole who said, I had to turn to other things to make money, like cleaning cars, do yard works, and that's how I do it. Roll said he was shocked when he went to the food store recently and his handful of items totaled $80. He went on, once upon a time, $100 gets you a trolley full of things with change, not now. Madam Speaker, it was a bad decision during these very difficult times to raise taxes on breadbasket items. Yet, this administration went ahead and did it anyway. The tax increase and global inflation are now burdening so many Bahamian families. This is a double whammy. This is not what the people expected, and when they elected the now governing side. The side, the opposite, wooed the people into sweet promises. But when they got into office, they went after the poor with a heartless tax increase on their food and their medication. It is good that we are here to strengthen Bamzi. It is good, Madam Speaker, that we are here to further support this critical institution in growing our agricultural sector. But what is the government's plan to reduce food prices in the short and medium term? Where is the plan? There's one obvious thing the governing side could do right now. I call on the new administration to remove VAT from breadbasket items. Have a heart, man. Reverse the bad policy that is causing some food prices to be so expensive. They should apologize to the people and reverse the disastrous policy of taxing breadbasket items. And this government must realize that many Bahamians are still recovering from the devastating effects of the pandemic on our economy. It will take a long time before many of our citizens get back to financial positions pre-COVID. This was the wrong time to stress poor and working class Bahamians with more taxes. Madam Speaker, the FNM proposed during the election a universal food program for every student in government-operated school system. Such a program would have included breakfast, lunch, and a snack for every child in government-operated schools. My administration spent $54 million for food assistance for Bahamians during the pandemic. We provided unprecedented amounts for unemployment assistance. The assistance for a number of Bahamians ended at the end of last year, and the Davis administration said it is considering new assistance. Poor people don't have weeks and months to wait for the PLP to consider this. The government needs to make a decision now. I wish to remind the House of comments by the member for Cat Island that were included in the May 31st, 2021 story in The Guardian, and the story quotes, the PLP leader, Philip Brave Davis, said he does not believe the government should end its unemployment assistance program in September. Well, this crisis for the Bahamian people, it's not going to end now. He went on, by the end of this year, Bahamians still will still be suffering and hurting. So we have to have a short-term and a long-term plan to bring relief to these behemoths. The government's obligation and responsibility is to look after its people, particularly in times of crisis. And that ought not be tied to any reactive positions and what is politically convenient or expedient. And that's what it seems to be. End quote. Madam Speaker, in keeping with those words, when he was leader of opposition, where is the unemployment assistance for those behemoths still in need? What is the short-term plan to ease the suffering of behemoths needing food and unemployment assistance? Further, as reported in The Guardian earlier this week in a story entitled Rising Prices Push Minimum Wage, Increase Liable Wage and Forefront Wage. The PLP promised in its blueprint for change that it would raise the minimum wage to $210, from $210 to $250, and introduce livable wage. The story went on to say earlier this year, Labor Minister Keith Bell said, though the matter had not yet reached Cabinet, he hoped a livable wage could be rolled out by the summer. Is it the government's intention to roll out the livable wage by this summer as advised by the Minister of Labor? Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Minnis.
The honourable member who would have mentioned the unemployment assistance benefit would have continued, so I let him go on. I didn't want to interrupt. With regards to the unemployment assistance benefit that was run through the National Insurance Board, Madam Speaker, the former Minister of Finances, well aware that though that national insurance was just a conduit with regards to which those funds were paid. There are promissory notes for which the government would be responsible for the repayment to the National Insurance Board of those funds. We're talking about $200 million, Madam Speaker, of which my learned friend, the honourable member for Killarney, is quite aware that the vast majority was paid for under his administration. And I'm not complaining about that because that was the right decision that was made. In September, the Prime Minister extended that program to the end of December 2021. The government has not made a decision on whether it's going to continue because it's very, very expensive. A report was submitted by the National Insurance Board stating the state of unemployment in the country. We are quite aware that Bahama, Atlantis are now open. We also know that Sandals is now hiring. I could say that the number of unemployed persons have been dramatically reduced, and those seeking has been dramatically reduced. The problem has not been extinguished, Madam Speaker. However, we are where we are. There's a $200 million bill that the government, now this government, will be responsible for footing. I understand the frustration that is going on in the country, Madam Speaker, but at this point, there's no decision made not to. We are just waiting on all of the facts to come in before the government makes a decision. I hope that further clarifies the matter, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honourable member. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Killarney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will address the member at the completion of my debate so as not to utilize my time nor be distracted. It is unfortunate that many Bahamian homeowners and businesses are reportedly facing up to 400% increase in their real property tax bill without prior notice. This is coming at a time when business owners, including many Bahamian small and medium-sized business owners, are trying to recover from the effect of COVID-19 pandemic. My government, allow me to complete. I'm going to explain what the Prime Minister is trying to interject and interrupt me, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, if the Prime Minister would allow me to complete, the Prime Minister would note that he has no questions.
It's on a point of order. It's on a point of order.
Point of order, Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Killarney, Rumkey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's very interesting. I heard the member for Killarney speak to increase in real property tax on many businesses and homeowners. Just for businesses and homeowners to know that the result of what they see in their bill is as a direct result of what was being carried on by the last administration. Recalling, we have just in office for 6 months, right? And what we intend to do, all businesses and homeowners who feel aggrieved by the bill that was sent to them as a result of the work done by the previous administration, there's a method for them to appeal right into the Inland Revenue Department, the Real Property Tax Department, and it will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So they need not to concern themselves about Killarney and we'll correct the mess that they left in respect to real property tax.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, that clock was 5 minutes on it. No, I watched that. I watched when he started.
The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Killarney.
Madam Speaker, it's unfortunate that I would hope that the Prime Minister read all the cabinet papers when he leaves here to have cabinet discussion. My government undertook a long overdue real property tax reassessment exercise, and we brought in a qualified international firm to assist. The results of this assessment exercise were to then be reviewed and discussed with key Bahamian stakeholders such as BREA and a representative group of Bahamian appraisers before any changes took effect. This was intended to ensure that the results of this assessment exercise provided the property assessment that were in line with the true local market value of the properties. After this consultative exercise was completed, then the final appraisal amounts were to be determined and the methodology adjusted to ensure that the end result reflected the reality of the Bahamian real estate market. The plan was to inform property owners of the changes and the rationale for these changes before we presented them with new bills with adjusted amounts. If the valuation amounts increased substantially, we would have given property owners sufficient time to adjust and make the required payment, or we would have reduced bills across the board significantly or delay until we thought individuals and the country were in a better position post-COVID. If the Prime Minister referred to all of the cabinet documents, the Prime Minister would not come here and say what he said.
The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Killarney.
Madam Speaker, the member says that what they intended to do, what they intended to do, that they were not going to bill no one until they would have reviewed it and discussed it with them. Right now, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, how are you going to discuss with me my bill or the amount you're going to tax me if I don't have the bill to discuss it with you? How are you going to do that? Pray tell me. Right? So the fact of the matter is that what we are going to do is correct that mess that they intend, what they're talking about is what they intended to do. What we will do is correct the mess.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker,
The Honourable Member for
if the Prime Minister reads the record would clearly reflect that we would not have brought in any increase in taxation as they did without discussion and under the present COVID condition that we see today. Read the records. Unfortunately, the Davis administration decided against this consultative and considerate approach. Instead, they decided that they did not want to or need to engage the stakeholders And by their actions, this administration is proving also that they are unconcerned with the very real and understandable challenges that Bahamian homeowners and businesses are facing as they recover from the devastating economic impact of the pandemic. And, Madam Speaker, many members in the inner city are having great difficulty. The inner city had been declared tax-free zone, no real property tax. There are bureaucratic obstacles that are being introduced, and I can speak from experience, bureaucratic obstacles that are being introduced, preventing individuals and delaying individuals from achieving or obtaining their tax exemption as in law in the free zone. Madam Speaker, I support plans to increase the production of food through agriculture and fisheries for strengthening Bamzi. I only want to refer to the Minister of Social Services, who stated yesterday he declared war on poverty. But how do you declare war on poverty when you increase taxes for breadbasket items, when you increase taxes for medication, when you show the poor who are suffering from chronic non-communicable diseases, their bills now increase, and many cannot longer afford to buy medication, and as a result, we will see morbidities increase and mortalities increase, and stress on the hospitals will subsequently increase. Taxes on the middle class has increased as a result of you not reading the cabinet papers and knowing what the plan moving forward, and as a result of real property taxes going up 400, 500, 600%. Individuals have come to my office complaining that they cannot pay such bills, and they are placed in most difficult situation. How can you declare war on the poor when there are members who have done roadside contracts with roads and parks who have not been paid since September, and individuals are literally crying because the cost of living had gone up, and still this is now February and government has not paid them since September. For God's sake, pay the people, man. Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Port Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, all of the theatrics of the honourable member of Killarney, with all of the theatre and the emotion, the member should have been advised by now that 80% of the persons holding contract have been paid in full, and the remaining 20% have been paid a portion pending the submission of the required forms. And it's interesting to note, Madam Speaker, that what is required is the bare minimum. Now, it would be interesting to see whether the 20%, because I understand there may be some issues with some of them. Many issues. But, Madam Speaker, the question is being asked with the requirement being so low, and given the times in which we are, why haven't this remaining 20% showed up and received their money? So the theater notwithstanding, most of the persons holding contract have been satisfied.
Thank you, honourable member. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Engliston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the member for Killarney made a blanket statement that over the hill, that it's a tax-free zone, and no. Over the hill, that it's a tax-free zone, etc. And his whole speech was about the poor. But I just want to remind him, it does not include Engliston. Engliston was deliberately excluded. Deliberately excluded during the tenure of this administration, and this member, who led the charge out of his office and purposefully excluded Engliston. So I hope the people of Engliston are listening when you come here with banging your table and all that stuff.
Madam Speaker,
Thank you, Honourable Member.
The legislation is there for Anglican and can be brought here, but I don't want to utilize my time. Madam Speaker, declaring a war on the poor, not war on the poor, the poverty, declaring a war on poverty, but at the same time, within a matter of weeks,
Honourable
if
Member,
not
are you
months,
asking for more time?
BPL electricity
Honourable
bill.
Member.
Yes, madam, my 5 seconds.
5 seconds?
Yes.
Okay.
The electricity bills for Bahamians will go up very, very soon by 20%, if not more, because the hedge that we had put in place has now come to the end. What are you going to do? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Exuma and Regular.
Madam Speaker, the member for Killarney went on a hypocritical tirade talking about how he cares about the poor.
Yes.
I remember sitting over there. I remember sitting over there where Marco sitting, where the new leader sits. I sat over there and I watched the dismay on the face of the back bench when that member who was the Minister of Finance increased VAT, one clean swoop, by 60%. Yeah. And he didn't even tell his members, Madam Speaker. And now he comes crying about how he cares about the poor when he said he would look after the poor in the next 5 years. He had 5 years to do it. So he increased taxes by 60%. He through his own policies, caused coconut vendors who were trying to make a living on the street to be arrested. And it goes on and on and on, Madam Speaker. This is the height of hypocrisy, Madam Speaker. And to see him standing here trying to pretend that the people he ignored, the people who didn't believe him when he said he would look after them in his next 5 years, he now wants them to hear him, Madam Speaker. This is misleading and it's hypocritical, Madam Speaker, and it must stop.
Thank you, honourable member.
You don't got no shame, you know. You don't got no shame.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Killarney.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like the member to withdraw the statement that he knows is not true, that my members were not informed of any changes related to taxes. I want to inform the member, I don't know their position, I want to inform the member that before any major changes left, there is such a thing as parliamentary meeting, of which we have. I want the member to withdraw such statement because he has an aversion for the truth.
Thank you, honourable member. You speaking? You getting ready to speak? Okay.
Speaker, I sat there where the now leader sits, and I watched the surprise in the faces of the backbenchers. And I will not call names, but they told me, Madam Speaker, not hearsay, they told me that they heard it for the first time when I heard it, Madam Speaker. So I will not withdraw, Madam Speaker. I stand by my words. He hiked tax by 60%. He didn't tell his backbenchers, much less the people of the Bahamas, and now he talking about consultation with the stakeholders. He's got to be joking.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Killarney.
The member and many of his personal friends knows that he has an aversion for the truth. So I wanted.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for West Grand, Bahama and Bimini.
Madam Speaker, I call upon the member for Killarney. You must show decency and withdraw. Withdraw what you just said. Withdraw what you said about the distinguished member from Exuma and Ragged Island. You must withdraw. You must withdraw that. You must withdraw what you said. Out of decency, member.
Yes.
Out of decency, member. Member, out of decency, you want us to continue that? Don't you not think that as leader of this country, former prime minister, we should be setting the right example? Is that any way to behave? Please.